Many of you may be wondering kind of what Aussie and I are looking to do and looking to achieve. And others of you probably don't care at all. And so, in that case, you can listen if you feel like it, but I would imagine you're already moving on. But something that's really been a passion of ours is kind of not only just highlighting and uplifting AAPI or Asian voices that we personally feel are so often left out of the media. And even when they're in the media, it kind of stops there, right? There's no follow up. There isn't really any lifting coming after that. And for us personally, that has just been very unfortunately apparent. But at the same time, we can either, wish for things to change, or we can try to bring that representation and start having these conversations. A lot of our focus has been around things like intersectionality of the Asian and queer identities. We feel like a lot of conversations around AAPI communities and mental health are gaining a lot of traction in a really positive direction, not nearly as much as we would hope for, but in the early stages of anything, building that initial momentum is often the hardest part. And so that's what we're kind of seeing right now. So something that has been kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say bothering me, but I really wanted to do some research on it. And I'm glad I did, because it did shed a lot of light on some of these questions I had been asking, and I just had never really looked it up. And I couldn't really remember how education was back then in terms of the Japanese internment camps, for example. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight was the fact that I know that Santa Anita Racetrack in Southern California was a holding place for the Japanese at the time, before they were sent off to the different internment camps that around the US. What I didn't know is that it was the largest assembly center, is what they call them. It was the largest assembly center in the nation, not just California, not just in like a certain region, in the entire nation. And actually 19,000 people went through Santa Anita Racetrack before being shipped off. So the barracks where people were detained, those who weren't in the stalls, because yes, people were actually put in the horse stalls. Yes, they cleared out all of the horses. They cleaned out, and by cleaned out, you can only imagine what kind of job they did. All of the manure and, all of right, just it's disgusting. And families actually slept in the horse stalls. I grew up going to the racetrack quite often because I grew up not too far from it, and they would have the night markets there, and they just have certain events there, and I never saw a plaque anywhere or like an acknowledgement that I knew of. And so on doing some research, they do have one, and it looks pretty big, but obviously it is worded in a specific way where it doesn't necessarily show the gravity of the atrocities that happened on those grounds that I also found out just through some quick Google searches and various articles, that there were actually 100,000 soldiers that were also trained on the racetrack, and it was called Camp Santa Anita. So I didn't know anything about that. And yeah, it was just crazy. Another one in Southern California was the Pomona Fairplex, where the LA Fair is held every year. They had 5,500 people who were detained there. That was just really interesting diving in, and I just figured that was something that had kind of been on my mind of, how many of us have been to the racetrack or the LA Fair and not even knowing what happened on those grounds before. And looking into something like this, anytime there's like a plaque, I feel like I want to read it now. Like I want to know what happened on those grounds, and at the very least, pay my respects to the people who were detained there. I'm sure there are so many places that we go for entertainment or we enjoy ourselves, and there were probably massacres that happened there. There were detainment camps and just horrific things that have essentially been reduced to like a tiny plaque, or at Santa Anita, I guess it's like a brick structure and it's pretty big, but I still never saw it that I can remember. I don't recall anybody acknowledging it unless it was like a specific day. It's just really interesting, and I'm glad I finally went to explore it. And I think everything that's happening like around the world with Palestine, Aussie and I got to go to a viewing, and it was a documentary on the genocide in Cambodia. I just wanted to, do some lifting of some of the Asian stories, history, and experiences out there as an effort to kind of raise awareness and promote Asian stories, right? We hear so much from other places of the world, other ethnic groups, other groups of people, but so often Asian stories, just like what happened in 2020 to the Asian communities, it's almost like it doesn't matter anymore. Nobody cared anymore. And so I think a great start is to just start talking about it again, bring it back out there. And I encourage any of you who have stories to share as well to do that, right? That's the only way we can get these things back into circulation and have these stories, is we have to talk about them. So if you stayed the whole time, thank you so much. If you're, an ally to the communities, whether the AAPI or LGBT communities, thank you so much. I think sometimes allies who actually care and make an effort don't always get enough credit for how much it takes to care about something beyond your own experience. So this is my acknowledgement to you, and to continue doing that, and to continue advocating not only for yourself but for others as well. So take care, everyone, and I will talk to you all soon.